Everybody, this is Right to Life of Central California Director John Gerardi. I'm a pro-life lawyer, and I think about and talk about abortion policy all the time. I also was busy the night of the presidential election and did not watch it live. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to watch the parts of the debate where President Biden and former President Trump talk about abortion, and I'm going to give you my live, unadulterated, tabula rasa reactions. So let's jump right into it. Here we go.
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade.
Woohoo!
This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho.
That was a lousy Supreme Court decision. I think I'm pretty disappointed with Justice Barrett's ruling there. It's basically eclipsing Idaho's law while the litigation continues, but will just continue.
Despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions.
That is true. A lot of people don't realize this, that the dynamics on the ground of abortion have changed. About 63% of all abortions in America are done via the abortion pill, mifepristone. This is a pill that's taken up to 10 weeks into a pregnancy to induce an abortion. This is not the morning after pill. President Biden, his deregulation of the abortion pill in 2021, allowing the abortion pill to be shipped to patients through the mail, allowing them to pick them up at major pharmacies and to get the abortion pill prescribed without an in-person doctor visit, that regulatory decision in 2021 coincided with a massive spike in the number of abortions done via the abortion pill.
As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion bill, and I agree with their decision to have done that.
That's not exactly true. What the Supreme Court said was that in a different lawsuit, there were a group of doctors who were challenging the FDA's approval of the abortion pill in the year 2000 and its subsequent acts deregulating and loosening up restrictions on the abortion pill in 2016 by Barack Obama and in 2021 by Joe Biden. The Supreme Court ruled in this case that the doctors who were filing the lawsuit against the FDA for those approvals, those doctors did not have standing to file the lawsuit, that those doctors hadn't actually experienced the harm. So the Supreme Court didn't say anything about the legality of the FDA's approval of the abortion pill. So Trump's not really stating that quite right. And frankly, it's kind of disappointing. This is an area where Trump could have a massive pro-life impact if his administration wins, if they were to roll back the disastrous and I believe unlawful approvals of the abortion pill that were undertaken by Presidents Clinton, Obama, and Biden.
And I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives.
Trump is correct that there were many liberal legal scholars who disagreed with the reasoning Roe v. Wade took, even though they agreed with the ultimate outcome it came to. I think he's probably overstating this. I think most pro-abortion people were perfectly happy with Roe v. Wade. But it is true that Roe v. Wade was such a disastrous bit of legal reasoning that there were even very prominent liberals like Ruth Bader Ginsburg who criticized the court's reasoning in Roe v. Wade.
Everybody wanted it back, religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now
there are plenty of pro-abortion legal scholars who precisely did not want that. Now, granted, I'm glad Roe was overturned, but I think Trump is overstating things a bit.
States are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But
I really got to say I can't stand this whole follow your heart thing from President Trump. I think he knows that basically the abortion issue is the one issue where Biden polls better than he does, and I think he's just trying to distance himself from it. So he's not committing to regulating the abortion pill, which I think is really disappointing because that's the one area federally where he could have a massive impact on lessening the number of abortions in America. And he's trying to say, well, whatever states decide to do, that's up to them.
you have to get elected also, and because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby.
Trump is not off base here, and this is, I think, this is a pretty effective moment right here. Biden's going to try and jump in, but the fact of the matter is, Democrats, pro-choice advocates throughout the country, do want legal third trimester abortions. They bristle at any restrictions on late-term abortions. In California, there are activists who want to get rid of the fetal viability line as any kind of distinction in California law, that you can do abortions before viability, but you need a doctor to determine that the woman's health is threatened to do an abortion after viability. Pro-abortion activists in California don't even want that limitation anymore. And my guess is that Biden's going to jump in here and try to obfuscate this whole thing. But Trump is also right that there's a big, I think, very often you've seen this problem. New York decriminalized stuff like this. Other states have pushed to decriminalize. Basically, if a child survives an abortion and is alive, do you provide that child with ordinary resuscitative care? And many these Democrat states are basically trying to push this regime that, no, you don't have to provide that resuscitative care. So when Trump's talking about late-term abortions even after the baby's born, he's 100% right there.
What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided. Supported Roe. And
I don't know that that's true. There were some pretty prominent liberal scholars who were okay with the end outcome, but not the way that the court got there. There were people like John Hart Eli who were writing that it was basically a total masquerade what the court was doing.
that's this idea that they were all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor, and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea.
Why would the doctor decide what your circumstances are if you need help? By which he means an abortion. This debate is happening in Atlanta. Georgia passed a law banning all abortions after fetal heartbeat can be detected, which is at 6 weeks. And that I think that's kind of what Biden's referencing here.
That states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states. Let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been.
See, this is the. It's so weird how pro-lifers and pro-choicers are almost coming to the same conclusions. On the pro-life side, I think it's sort of absurd that the abortion question is determined by, the popular will of this state and that state and this state and that state. It's like letting slavery or civil rights be decided on a state-by-state basis. Biden's sort of saying the same thing I am, only from the opposite. He thinks keeping abortion legal is this critically important question of civil rights that should be mandated federally. I think the right to life is this critically important issue of basic civil and human rights that should be mandated federally. If anything, it's interesting how I'm on. Trump is really incredibly moderate on the abortion position, because I think he's trying to project this image of, well, just whatever the states want to do. Biden is so extreme on this that he's likening the abortion question to like slavery or the civil rights movement.
Including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about that. But here's the deal. There's a lot of young women being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters. I
don't think there are a lot of people being raped by their sisters. I'm not sure what he's talking about here.
It's just ridiculous. And they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state line.
I mean, Trump at length said he supported abortion in cases of rape. But it's also a thing, Biden, this is just the signature pro-abortion move rhetorically. Let's highlight the 1% rare instance when abortion is chosen, okay, for cases of sexual assault. That doesn't mean cases of sexual assault are unimportant, but the reality is abortion for sexual assault is shocking, is an incredibly rare phenomenon relative to the vast majority of abortions. 99% of abortions are undertaken are undertaken when there was no sexual assault. So he uses the 1% case as a rationale to justify the other 99% of the time when abortion is being chosen because of financial pressures, family pressures, whatever it is. This is such a classic rhetorical move that pro-abortion people do all the time, and we shouldn't let Biden get away with it. That he's just immediately jumping to instances of rape, which again is I think abortion, even in cases of rape, is seriously morally wrong, and that it's not even the right approach to the rape issue. Trump himself is even saying that he supports abortion in cases of rape. So it's kind of an incoherent response on Biden's part.
Thank you.
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border. We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world, considered the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our...
Yeah, so that was the thing Biden was trying to reference. Oh, you care about women who've been killed by illegal aliens. How come you don't care about women who are raped and want abortions? Which seems to me kind of a cheap comparison, and I think Biden kind of lost his own train of thought somewhere in the middle of there, talking about brothers and sisters and stuff like that.
Country. And they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which frankly they didn't. But they would have...
Well, that's not really right either. It's not what everyone wants. It's not what I want. My preference would be for, and I think the whole pro-life movement, our concern is not with democracy flourishing when it comes to abortion. Our concern is with abortions not happening, with people not being killed. And it's also a thing, I think, for him to say, well, this is not something that the framers of the Constitution would have envisioned. Abortion is a thing that has happened throughout all of human history. There are judicial cases from colonial America dealing with the question of abortion. We saw around the time of the ratification of the 14th Amendment, almost all of the states passed laws, explicit statutes, explicitly outlawing abortion, except to save the mother's life. And so I think Trump is, again, trying to put together almost this kind of Stephen Douglas-esque argument from the Lincoln-Douglas debates. What was the distinction? Lincoln said slavery should just be abolished everywhere, and Douglas said, well, let every state decide. I think that's kind of that seems like what Trump is trying to carve out for himself here.
Everybody wanted it brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states, I'll let you do that, this is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
This is an amazing question. I'm really surprised that CNN asked it, because this is a question that every pro-abortion politician needs to answer, and none of them do. So I'm very interested to see what Biden says here.
Supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. First time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state.
Okay. Roe v. Wade did have a trimester system of regulation. Biden's characterization of it is wildly off. Okay. What Roe v. Wade said, and by the way, Roe v. Wade got eclipsed later on by Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which had kind of the same end result as Roe, it just had different legal reasoning. So, all right. Roe v. Wade had a trimester system of regulation, which the justices of the Supreme Court pulled out of absolute thin air. There was even no pretense on their part that a trimester system of regulating abortion was actually hidden somewhere in the 14th Amendment. They were clearly making up laws. So the Supreme Court, their trimester system was, in the first trimester, basically no regulations on abortion whatsoever. I think that's what he's trying to say is between a woman and her doctor. In the second trimester, the Supreme Court allowed certain kinds of restrictions for the health of the mother, not for the health of the baby, though. That abortion could be regulated for maternal health reasons. Biden characterized that as for, quote, extreme situations, which I don't think that's right. In the third trimester, Biden is saying, yeah, that can be between the woman and the state. And he's trying to act as if Roe v. Wade allowed abortions to be banned in the third trimester. Yes, Roe said that states could ban abortion in the third trimester, but they had to have an exception for any pregnancies that threatened maternal health. And in a companion case that was decided the same day as Roe, called Doe versus Bolton, in Doe versus Bolton, the Supreme Court defined health, and they defined it unbelievably broadly. Mental health, psychological health, familial health. So basically, any abortion threatens the mother's health such as to justify a third trimester abortion. So yeah, under Roe, states could ban abortion in the third trimester, but they had to allow for an exception of any pregnancy that threatens maternal health, and every pregnancy threatened maternal health under that definition of health. So here's what Biden's doing. Almost no Americans support third trimester abortion. Almost none of them. Biden is trying to skate around, whether through ignorance of understanding how Roe is applied or deceit, it's one or the other. He's trying to skate around the fact that he's really actually quite okay with third trimester abortion by appealing to Roe, by appealing to this surface level reading of Roe that doesn't understand. You don't read Roe in isolation. You had to read Roe v. Wade in conjunction with Doe versus Bolton and understand that's why Roe was not some moderate Supreme Court decision. It mandated on every state as a requirement of the Constitution that abortion be legal for all 40 weeks of pregnancy and for any reason, including in the third trimester, as long as the woman could make any kind of claim that the doctor would agree with about health. So Biden is just flat out wrong here.
The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politicians is making that decision.
That's precisely what probably the founders wanted. The whole structure of our federalist system of government, where the federal government is a government of limited and enumerated powers, but state governments had what was called The police power, and it sounds like police state, but this is kind of a legal term of art. The police power means the more broad and general ability of state governments to regulate various aspects of our economic life, public safety, criminal law, as well as public health. Public health was always something that was squarely within the domain of what states can regulate, and states regulate that today. When you're a doctor, you're licensed by your state board. States regulate all kinds of stuff having to do with the practice of medicine. So the idea that it's ridiculous that the founders would think that a decision between a woman and her doctor would be regulated by the state. States regulate healthcare all the time. They regulate healthcare right now. I believe President Biden was vice president to a guy who passed a law called Obamacare, which was a thing that regulated healthcare all over the country. So that is just not true.
A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
So that means he can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby.
This is very rhetorically effective by Trump. I think this is very smart. Trump knows. Trump is trying to find the most common ground he can on the abortion question. I think he's doing so to a fault, frankly. I think I'm very nervous, frankly, in a Trump presidency, if he's going to do enough at the federal level to regulate the kinds of aspects of abortion that are within his control. But frankly, this is very rhetorically effective. He's cutting through Biden's BS about Roe v. Wade restricting abortion in the 3rd trimester and saying, if you support Roe, you support 3rd trimester abortions. Because it's true. That's precisely right.
Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
That's true.
That is simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that.
It 100% did. It provided for those abortions when the woman's health was threatened, and every interpretation of maternal health, the Doe v. Bolton maternal health interpretation that the Roe court issued on literally the same day, that's what they provided for.
It's not the circumstance. Only a woman's life is in danger. She's going to die.
No, woman's health is in danger. Her mental health, her familial health. It's not for saving the woman's life. And Trump's own federal government right now is suing Idaho on the grounds that, well, Idaho has a law banning abortion except to save the woman's life. The Biden administration is trying to argue that there are federal requirements on emergency rooms in Idaho to force them to perform abortions, not when the woman's life is threatened, but when the woman's health is seriously threatened. That's an ongoing Supreme Court case that's happening right now. So Biden is being totally disingenuous here. I mean, assuming that he's picking his words with that much care, which, frankly, your guess on that front is as good as mine. But he's totally wrong.
That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But
it's not the only circumstance. Late-term abortions happen most of the time. Late-term abortions are happening for the same kinds of reasons that they're not happening for emergent, serious medical reasons. When you're that far along in a pregnancy, premature delivery is advisable, not premature abortion. Not late-term abortion. So this is another lie that the pro-abortion left tries to push, that late-term abortions only happen because of serious medical problems. It's not true. Late-term abortions are happening usually for the same kinds of elective reasons, financial pressures, family pressures, etc. Most of the time, those are the reasons why late-term abortions are chosen.
Are not for late-term abortion, period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want.
He's right.
Depending on the state, you can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do, in fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans control the Congress, and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
There we go. Frankly, that is a good question. If Republicans were to pass a federal abortion restriction, what would Trump do? And I think Trump said he doesn't want to sign stuff like that, which I think is unfortunate. All right. Well, there you go. Hopefully y'all learned something from that, and we'll see you all next time on John Gerardi Reacts.